unfortunately for us, we are used to living in states of anxiety. We are used to living in states of fear, in anger, in hurt, in disappointment. And that has become the way we have been experiencing life.
Welcome back to the Happiness and Progress podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award winner, former journalist, mom, wife, and just a human being looking for more joy in the everyday. This podcast is all about finding joy in the good, bad, and in between. It's brought to you by the Mail Tribune. You can find more podcasts and the latest in your news headlines at mailtribune.com. Today's guest is Preethaji. She's the co-founder of O&O Academy, a philosophy and meditation school for transforming consciousness. She offers courses in major cities around the world. Her TEDx talk has been watched by more than 2 million people. In her new book, The 4 Sacred Secrets, she and her husband, Krishnaji, teach everyday people like you and me how to harness the power of living in a transformed state of consciousness. I met Preethaji earlier this year at a book launch dinner hosted by Usher. He said his life has gained more meaning through the practices he learned from Krishnaji and Preethaji. I am so excited to share this conversation with you. Preethaji explains how self-centric thinking is at the center of suffering, how we have become addicted to things like stress, anxiety, loneliness, and conflict, and how to start walking out of that to, of course, live in a beautiful state. One of my favorite things she talks about is what to do when you are in a suffering state, because most of us have been taught to deal with suffering, things like stress and anxiety, by ignoring it. She teaches us what to do instead and how she sees success differently from the rest of the world. Plus, she leads us in her serene mind practice. It is incredible. In fact, I'm also going to put it in a bonus of its own. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Let's get to it. I like to start by giving you a chance to tell me and my listeners a little bit about yourself.
I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I am the founder of O&O Academy, a school for meditation and philosophy, where the vision is to transform lives, to create a revolution in one's consciousness, the way one experiences life and the way one lives life and what one can create from a beautiful state. So our focus is a state of being. Focus is to transform one's consciousness so that we can awaken to individuals who are conscious parents, conscious teachers, conscious leaders, conscious business owners, conscious partners. So that is the mission.
I love that idea of transforming people's lives. Tell me about the impact that has on you to be able to see someone come in a state that's a suffering state and then leave in a beautiful state.
Oh, yes. When I see someone, I'm right now in Japan leading a group of people through this transformational journey. When I see a person evolve, or when I see a person walk out of suffering states or walk out of separation and division that one experiences within oneself, and I begin to see the whole group become one family, be joyful and be as one, feel as one, not the experience of separation that we usually feel. I actually see not an individual transformation, but I see this transformation resulting in a more beautiful world, in a more peaceful world. And I see this transformation being carried forward to many generations that is to come.
Oh, that's such beautiful work. That must feel really good.
Oh, yes, absolutely. When people begin to smile, when they feel so light within oneself, when their conflict, their inner war, the chaos that is constantly hurting their life disappear in front of your eyes, it's very fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. If there's one thing, and I know there's many things that people learn when they come to O&O Academy and they come to the retreats, what is one of the biggest things they take away that helps them have that transformed life and helps them impact their children and their children to come? What is one big takeaway?
They become individuals capable of nurturing a beautiful state. They become capable of experiencing love for themselves, within themselves, and love for the other in their lives. They become individuals capable of experiencing states beyond their self.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the world and the problems that we see in the world, in terms of stress, in terms of anxiety or loneliness, or if you're looking at the conflict that you see in the external world, it is because an individual has stopped learning or has not brought importance to one's state of being. See, what is experienced inside is flowing out in the external world as war, as conflict, as division. So, if we as individuals are able to nurture this beautiful state, if we as individuals are able to experience profound, deep connection with life, then we become individuals nurturing our life,
Mm-hmm.
nurturing and impacting the lives of people around us.
Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I had my life plan, and it's kind of what we're taught here to do is create a life plan. And I really felt that I would know everything I needed to know and be where I needed to be by the age of 28. I'm not sure why I chose that age, but you mentioned this lifelong
See?
learning, and not long after that did I have kind of my wake up call year, and it was the year that I realized I needed to make some big changes in my life. So why is lifelong learning such an important part of our experience?
Krishnaji always says, Krishnaji is the founder. He's the founder of Ono Academy. We have founded it together. We are husband and wife. Krishnaji always says that we are either living, as human beings, we are either living in a beautiful state or a suffering state.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no third state.
Mm-hmm.
So at any point of time, you are constantly nurturing a beautiful state or you are fueling a suffering state. There's nothing like, it's neutral. It doesn't actually exist.
Mm-hmm.
So the most important decision behind everything that you see in the world is the driving force of these two states. And it becomes a constant effort of individuals to nurture this beautiful state. Not that I experience a beautiful state once and then say, okay, fine, I had that experience. No, it is about constantly living in the beautiful state so one can create a beautiful life. This beautiful state is intrinsically connected with the decisions that you make in life. It is intrinsically connected to the actions that you perform and the destiny that you can create. And it is not only your destiny but also the collective destiny, because what happens to the individual happens to the world. Mm-hmm. So that's why it becomes very important to constantly bring back attention to one's inner state and nurture this beautiful state.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean to live in a beautiful state?
A beautiful state could be experienced as calm, as joy, as love, as peace, as connection, as bliss, as experiencing the other or feeling one with the other or being one with the entire universe. It is a state in which you are being present to life. It is a state where there is no inner conflict, inner noise, inner chaos. It is a state where you're not obsessed about your past, obsessed about your future, but you are in the present moment. And it is an experience where the sense of self expands to include your friend, your community, your family, your world. It is a state of expansion. It is not a state where you feel very limited about life.
Mm-hmm. And tell me what it is like to live in a state, a suffering state.
A suffering state is irritation, could be experienced as irritation, as frustration, as hurt, disappointment, fueling fear, anger, hurt, depression, sadness, loneliness, insecurity. And the problem with our life today is nobody has taught us that it's important to walk out of these states. Mm-hmm. And we continue engaging in these states and we have kind of become very comfortable with it. I would say we become very numb to these states and we live our life from a state of anxiety. We live our life from a state of fear. We live a life from a state of anger, and it's become normal. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Mm-hmm. That is what the society has made us feel, that it is okay to live in those states because everybody is there. But it is important to nurture beautiful states because or dependent on your beautiful state would be your experience of life.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. We've accepted it as part of life, suffering.
Yes, suffering has been,
That's life.
anxiety is fine with children, depression is fine for youth. Like sadness and loneliness is fine in middle age. It has become a very normal way of life, but it is such a destructive force. Destroys our pursuit towards wealth, destroys our life itself, and it's a very meaningless, purposeless life when you live life from a suffering state.
I want to read this from the book. I just love this. This is from part of what Krishnaji wrote. He writes, quote, "In the great inner silence, I realized the true nature of all the moments of suffering I had ever experienced. A realization radiated throughout the entirety of my being. The root cause of all suffering is obsessive, self-centric thinking." End quote. So tell me how this self-centric thinking plays a role in suffering.
When you are in a suffering state, it could be it could be anger, it could be hurt, it could be fear, it could be shame, it could be guilt, any of the suffering state, because we categorize suffering state as a state of inner disturbance. In any of this suffering state, if you are able to bring greater attention to yourself, it would not be about the incident or the situation, but the suffering would be continuing within you. You would be engaging in suffering and allowing it to continue within you because of your obsession with yourself, because you are engrossed with yourself. Any suffering is a self-centric pursuit. And here I would definitely like to differentiate between a challenge and a suffering. Challenge is what any species and every species faces. It could be animal species, plant species, or human species. We all experience challenges in life. And what this challenging situation needs from us is that we're able to bring total attention to that situation so that we can respond with intelligence to that situation. Human species is little different. The external challenge that one experiences, the challenge that one experiences, continues internally as suffering state. There is an inner dialogue that continues and which we call as suffering. And this suffering is perpetuating within oneself because of this self-centric thinking. And when I talk about self-centric thinking, it is a thinking in which one thinking that is revolving around oneself. If you have to leave it as a formula, it would be me plus me plus me plus me plus me. You could be fighting for some great cause, but if you're suffering, it comes because of you. Why did this happen to me? Why did the other person behave like that to me? Why am I not being heard? Why is life not treating me well? It is a constant story that is narrated within yourself again and again and again, and it is self-centric in nature. So suffering exists because of the self-centric pursuit.
You write, or Krishnaji writes about, was it a canoe you guys were in? Or a boat, some kind of boat.
A jet ski.
Jet ski. You guys fall into the water, and he is suffering, and he realizes it's connected to all of these I statements. And I've read this book 2 times now, and between the 2 times that I read it, I experienced my son going under the water and me having to get to him really quickly and pull him out so that he wouldn't drown. And I realized in the moments after that, I had almost the exact same thought process as Krishnaji, which was, why was I turned this way? I did that. I was in the water. I didn't have my eyes here. And every single, almost all of it was revolved around me. And so that's what you're talking about, that self-centric thinking.
Yes. And that is self-centric thinking. And in that state, whatever that state of suffering is, anger, fear, hate, whatever it is, it separates you from other. It separates you from your child. It separates you from the people around you. Imagine the time that we are spending in anxiety, or imagine the time that we are spending feeling lonely or feeling insecure or feeling anger. It is a time that we are spending in separation. That is, you can have the most wonderful person sitting next to you, but because you are in a suffering state, you are incapable of connecting to the other. You're incapable of feeling the other. You're incapable of being there for the other because you are lost in this me-centric, self-centric, obsessive suffering state.
I can think of some of those thoughts that would come through. Maybe, what are they thinking about me? What am I doing here? I. So
Absolutely.
how can we change the way we're responding to our external circumstances instead of being so self-centered in our thinking?
That is why what the academy teaches is an inward journey to walk out of the suffering state as and when it arises. It involves processes, deep, powerful emotional processes, because many of us are probably used to living this way 10, 20, 30, and probably all our lives. So it needs a powerful immersion process, which is heart centric, which actually helps you purge all the toxins that's been accumulated in your consciousness. Or people in the academy also have powerful experiences of the mystical, of the transcendental, or I would like to say it as the beyond the self state, a powerful state of expansion. And that allows you to walk out of your suffering state, because okay, the whole thing is starting again. You're able to see it very clearly because there is yet another state in your consciousness where you've experienced you're much more than the suffering state. You are this pure joy, pure bliss, state of immense attention, immense awareness that you have experienced can help you walk out of these suffering states. But for those who are listening to us talking now, there is this practice called the serene mind, which helps you bring attention to your inner state, which actually brings, it's a practice that involves two of the powerful insights which Krishnaji shares with the world. One is that every one of us at any point of time live only in one of two states, either a suffering state or a beautiful state. So this practice involves recognizing what state you are in at that given point of time. And deeper you go, you also bring attention as this emotion is arising within you. Are you in a self-centric pursuit, or are you experiencing connection? So it gives a deeper understanding into this nature of being constantly self-centric. And this practice actually helps you to cut across this habitual self-centric pursuit of life and experience deeper moments of connection. It's available for anyone. It's available on Breathing Room. It is there even in the book, The Four Sacred Secrets, or it is there online, I guess. Yes. It is available. Yeah.
Can you walk us through? Can we do it now, or do you want me to just send everyone?
Absolutely.
That would be kind of a cool thing.
We can do it, and then you can send it also.
Okay, perfect. I will link it in show notes as well.
Yes, perfect. So please close your eyes. Keep your spine straight. Allow your breath to be deep and slow. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Identify the exact emotion that is arising within you. Is it anxiety, frustration, anger, fear, loneliness, sadness? Or is it calm, love, joy, connection? Do not try to change anything, just observe. As this emotion is arising within you, now bring attention to the movement of your thought. Are you going back to a past experience? Or are you obsessing about your future? As this emotion is arising within you, are you feeling separate? Or are you feeling connected with the other? Now see a light move from the middle of your forehead to the middle of your brain. Allow this light to glow in the middle of your brain. Bring a gentle smile to your face. Open your eyes whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much for leading that. That is so powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for getting it to so many of your audience.
Yes, I'm so excited to share that. So in the book, you talk about an addiction to these suffering states, an addiction to the anger, an addiction to the worry. Tell me a little bit about that.
See, these suffering states could have started probably when we were very young.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody has taught us that we need to walk out of these suffering states. Otherwise, you're getting used to it. So what happens is there is a suffering state. So there is a neural connection that is formed in your brain. But you get back into experiencing that state again and again and again. That means these neural connections that is happening in your brain is so much stronger. Mm. Because something is happening in the external situation, we move into anger, few of us. But many times, even when there is no need to feel anger, you will be feeling because you have a very strong neural connection to experiencing that suffering state. We are so used to being in that place. It has become our home. Mm-hmm. It has become the way we live life. It has become the way we move through life. And we are very comfortable with it because it is very familiar to us. And we are used to it. And there is this story that I always share. There are two women, one selling fish and the other selling flowers. And both of them go to the market, sell their respective products. While getting back home, it begins to rain. So the fish seller decides to spend the night in the flower seller's home. So they have dinner together and they go to bed. In the middle of the night, the fish seller is very uncomfortable. She tosses from one side to the other side, but she's not feeling nice. So she immediately wakes up and gets up to check what is troubling her, and she sees a basket full of fresh jasmine flowers very close to her.
Mm-hmm.
She immediately pushes the basket full of flowers away from her, and then pulls a basket full of dead fish very close to her, takes a deep breath, and then goes back to bed. And she's feeling very comfortable about it. We are very similar to the fish seller, though the experience of life in a suffering state is very unpleasant. It is not a joyful experience. Since we are used to it, we get back to it. Just like how the smell of fish, dead fish, is definitely not, it's horrible to smell a dead fish. But this lady is so comfortable with the smell of the dead fish because she is used to it. Unfortunately for us, we are used to living in states of anxiety. We are used to living in states of fear, in anger, in hurt, in disappointment. And that has become the way we have been experiencing life.
How can we walk out of that? If it's something we've been practicing for decades, it seems like it would be hard.
But we have to start nurturing this beautiful state little bit at a time, Daniel. Even if we are able to nurture it as a soul sync meditation every morning, if you're able to nurture a beautiful state, if you're going to take time and nurture this beautiful state, it will become part of your consciousness. It's not like there are, of course, one powerful experience of the transcendence can change the way you look at life, but can allow you to let go of the suffering states easily. But even if you're taking a couple of minutes into nurturing the beautiful states again and again and again, you are creating a new environment in your consciousness.
So if you are practicing this, say you are practicing the soul sync meditation every morning, and you're going throughout your day and then anxiety comes in, or anger or worry or something else, one of these suffering states that you're addicted to, what is the change?
I would do. You should do the serene mind practice then. So soul sync practice is a practice that leads you into a place of connection, a place of expansion. It allows you also to hold a desire that you want to manifest in your life from that place of connection, and it nurtures this beautiful state again and again. But say, as you said, you are moving through life and you experience anxiety, I would say bring attention to that anxiety. Just don't leave it under the carpet, because when you leave it, what happens is it builds. It builds stronger and becomes more powerful. It becomes a very strong neural connection in your brain. But if you're feeling disturbed, if there is anxiety, bring attention to it. Do the serene mind practice.
I love that part of it is to not judge it, the feeling or the suffering, but to observe it. Why is that important?
See, if you look at life, what has life or society has taught us for the suffering states is, what they've said is, what society has taught us is distract yourself. Get into addictions, do something that you like to do, or go bungee jumping. So don't try to see what is there. That's what the society is constantly telling us. But the problem is, once you have a dopamine high and then the dopamine subsides and you're getting back to old way of experiencing life. Or the second thing that self-help teaches is, try to change the story. If there is a story that is your talk constantly repeating to yourself, try to change the story, give a new story. But the problem is, the new story that you give is not as strong enough as the old story that you have created. A few of us, what we have done to suffering state is we hold on to metaphysical ideas, or ideas saying that, like, it's given to me my God, it's making me stronger, it's making me powerful, it is destiny, it is karma. So we hold on to some ideas and we live life that way. And few of us try very hard. Actually, many of us, common sense tells, if there is a suffering state and you're not supposed to have it, then push it away. But the truth is, once you try to push it away, it becomes much stronger. It becomes more powerful and comes back at you.
Wow.
That is why when there is an inner discomfort, when there is a suffering state, do not try to push it. We're not saying ignore it, but do not try to push it away. Because once you push it away, if there's a negative thinking and say, oh, I'm not supposed to be thinking negative, and if you try pushing it away, you would see that this negative thinking gains a lot more power and comes at you much more stronger.
It can't be resolved that way.
No. What you can experience freedom only when you are able to observe without trying to push it away. That's why
Wow.
we said don't change anything. Just observe. Don't judge. Don't comment. But a judgment is part of it. See the judgment also, but don't try to push anything away.
Okay, I love that you write this. One of course, the 4 sacred secrets is dissolving the inner divide, and you write. Let's see, where do I want to start here? Let's start here. You write, quote, at the root of our inner divide is the habit of incessant commentary, which divides every experience of our lives into should be and should not be. It is this habit that drives us to comparison and inner war. When you look at your body, you do not see it as it is. You comment on every inch of your body as it should be or should not be. When you are with your family, you are not present to it as it is. You comment on every member as should be this way or should not be this way. When you enter your home, you do not relish it. You comment on it as it should have been bigger or smaller, or it should not have been. When you get to work, you are not filled with a sense of purpose or creativity. You judge every day as I should have been elsewhere or I should not have been here. End quote. Tell me about what this does to our lives.
You're constantly living life in division. This kind of thinking, what happens to you is you live in a constant state of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And there is this constant struggle in your appearance, at work, with your family members. And it is this running commentary that makes living itself very, very painful.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important that we bring attention to this incessant inner commentary. We live in a constant denial of life. It is not looking at life as it is. When you see life as it is you what you need to that is it's just a fact of life, and what you need to do is respond to that fact of life, make it better, if possible add more value, if possible try to change it. But with this incessant commentary within yourself, you are torn within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There is this noise that is constantly hurting you. There is this war that is constantly hurting you. There are conflicting desires. There are conflicting values. And it is not a beautiful experience of life at all.
I think so much of this comes from what we learn, even as little children, that your body should look this way, your house should look this way, your job should look this way, your family should look this way. Tell me about how you see success compared to how the world sees success.
Just going back to what you just spoke, this constant idea of perfection is hurting us from within.
Mm-hmm.
And this image of this perfect body or perfect life situation or perfect situations where you are achiever or successful, this constant perfection idea of perfection is hurting us from within. That is, we are constantly comparing ourselves with what life should have been, or with what life could have been. And then we are immersing and struggling with this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are in conflict, you're not being present to life. There is no success that you can actually relish. There is no connection that you can bring to your relationships in your life. It is a state in suffering. It is a state in separation.
Wow. There's no success you can actually relish.
Absolutely. If you are in this state, you can probably be the most successful person in your community or in your city, but still the state would continue because you will have another set of perfection that is kept for you, another image of perfection to which you have to compare and to which you have to live up to. I'm not saying that achievement is wrong, success is wrong. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there is a state from which you need to pursue. Is it necessary that you pursue your life towards achievement and success from this place of lack, from this constant struggle towards this image of being a perfect person? Or can it come from a place of connection where you're able to feel the other, where you're able to connect to the other, where you're able to wanting to solve the problem of the other, where you're able to add value to the other's life? You can live life from that place. When you actually live life from that state of connection, then you are there experiencing success and feeling a meaning, experiencing great meaning, great purpose in living itself.
Is there one thing somebody listening could do today to get them to kind of turn the corner on this? If they are living this life out of lack and there should not being themselves all the time, is there one question or one prompt or something they can do a little differently today to start in the right direction?
I would say nurture connection in your consciousness. Connection you can experience as gratitude, connection that you can experience as compassion, feeling the other. Take time to look into the eye of the other. Take time to go beyond people's appearances, people's behaviors, to actually feeling what they're feeling, and take time to experiencing the other. And that will change the way you live life. When it's all the time me-centric, it is a very painful experience, but it is like an experience of the smell of the dead fish. You're used to it. So what we need to create in your consciousness is beautiful experiences of connection.
I love that. That's great advice. In all my years covering heartbreaking news as a news anchor and reporter, death and loss, of course, was at the center of this. I talked to dozens of parents and brothers and sisters who had lost someone that they loved. And I think of all of the dozens of people that I talked to and sat in the living rooms of, I can only think of one person who was not in a suffering state. So for all those other people, is it possible to live in a beautiful state when you're dealing with the loss of a loved one?
There is grief.
Mm-hmm.
We can't say there would not be grief. There is definitely grief. Actually, I think it is a very human, not only human, I see it even in animals. It's a very human tendency to experience grief. But after the grief is gone, what keeps you engaged in suffering, if you look deeper, it would be like, why did this happen to me? Or why was I doing it that way? How can I do this? Or why did God punish me this way? It will be the same thinking that goes over and over again. And I have seen many people who have experienced a loss, who are of course stuck in that loss and not being present to so many people in their lives, not being there for so many other people in their lives.
What would be your advice to them?
I would still say that, you have to become alive to so many other people in your life.
Mm-hmm. So we just attended a beautiful book launch dinner hosted by Usher. And I asked him, because I know he is so great at building you up and sharing your message. I asked him if we could talk a little bit about his story. He said it would be fair to talk a little bit about how he came to find you in Krishnaji and the impact that it's made on his life.
I feel Usher was a true seeker, wanting to learn, wanting to grow, wanting to experience those states of consciousness that can be a huge life in terms of clarity, in purpose, in meaning. He was a true seeker. He was a true seeker, wanting to live life from an extraordinary state. That definitely I can say, and his learning with us at the ONO Academy with Krishnaji has been I'm sure has been a beautiful experience for him.
When you attend something like that, or when you are at a retreat like the one you're in the middle of, I think you're still in the middle of that. Do you have any realizations just about human beings in general? Is there something that kind of across the board you're learning about human beings?
A greater attention to how all people can separate themselves from their loved ones, how all people can separate themselves from life, from people, and how we are used to living that way.
Do you think that we live that way more now that we are thinking we're connected with things like social media?
It has been the same suffering, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been, I would say it has become chronic right now. chronically living in states of anxiety, chronically living in states of loneliness and alienation, it has become a way of life for so many of us. That is why we see such a huge number of people, or actually young people, wanting to end their lives. Huge part of the population living in depression, or a large part of married couples experiencing loneliness. It has become very chronic right now. I don't know which to blame.
Yeah.
But the journey has to start within each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm. If there's a parent listening who has maybe seen a lot of suffering in their child, is there something they could do to bring a more beautiful state into their home?
Absolutely. And as a parent, I can say that you being in a beautiful state, you being in a beautiful state allows you to be present to your child, allows you to connect to your child, allows you to be there for your child. That means energetically, you are having a huge healing impact on the way your child experiences life. So we do not realize like how much our state speaks. We are only focused on role models. We're focused on what do you say, our actions, the gestures that we perform. But our state speaks much louder. Our state creates a huge impact. I would say every parent should learn the art of living in a beautiful state. Otherwise, what we are doing is allowing the suffering that we experience to continue.
Mm-hmm. At the dinner, I was talking with several people about anxiety and how we have learned different tools to get out of anxiety. But someone from O&O Academy said, well, I can help the person never feel anxiety in the beginning. And is that just starting with the soul sync practice every morning?
Absolutely. You can start with the soul sync. What the soul sync does is in terms of consciousness, it leads you to a place of expansion. But in terms of brain, it activates yet another region in your brain. So it is actually transforming your consciousness, your brain, your body, everything, so that you can nurture a beautiful state again and again.
So then when you're going throughout your day, that anxiety is just less, you're already in the beautiful
Absolutely.
state. So it's less likely it'll come in? Okay.
Absolutely. It is less likely it will come in. Then you are getting used to the fragrance of the jasmine flowers. You are creating an environment by which beautiful state becomes natural to you. So it is coming together in all ways.
I love that you went back to the jasmine flowers because it's like smelling them every morning. So later on in the day, when you smell the fish, you know you want to go back to the jasmine flowers.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
I just love that. So this podcast is all about finding more joy in the everyday, whether it's the good, the bad, the in-between parts of life. What would be your number one tip to finding that daily joy?
If you're looking at someone, look at someone fully. Smile with your lips. Recognize and acknowledge the other person being in your life. Appreciate the other person in your life.
Mm-hmm. And I love that so much of this is connection-based. That connection matters so much.
Because we are a human species that has lived, or that is living a large part of life in separation within ourselves. When we're separating ourselves from our loved ones, we're separating ourselves from the people whom we work with. We live life in separation because we suffer a large part of our lives. So it is important to transform that. We need to change it. We need to change the ecology or the ecosystem of your consciousness.
Preethaji, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing this. I just loved the book. Several parts just struck my heart, and I have been sharing it with so many of my family members and friends. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for this podcast, and thank you for taking this message to your audience.
I am so thankful for Preethaji's time and wisdom. I am especially grateful to be able to share the Serene Mind practice with you. You're going to be able to find that in the bonus content here as well. And remember, you'll also be able to get it on her website. All of that's going to be linked for you in the show notes. And for the month of December, I have a Happiness in Progress Advent calendar available. Each day, I will challenge you with something else that will help you increase your joy this season by being more intentional, service-oriented, oriented, and mindful. And you can find the link to sign up for that in show notes as well. And I want to thank you for being here on Happiness in Progress.